Ted, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much. Nice to talk to you about fishing.
Now, listen, I'd like to ask you about Florida fishing. I know that you're quite a Florida sportsman. And how was the fishing down in Florida this year?
Well, the fishing's always good when the weather's good. The winter months, of course, you get your fronts coming through, and it slows up fishing for 3 or 4 days. Then then the fishing will come back, and then of course your moon phases have a little bit effect on it. But all in all, you get pretty good fishing whenever the weather's good in southern Florida this time of year.
Moon tables, and you're a lunar believer.
Oh, I certainly think the moon has a tremendous effect on fish. Certainly when weather conditions are pretty stable, why, you can pretty near depend that during them full moon, 3 or 4 days before, 3 or 4 days after, the fishing will slow up a little bit during that week.
Listen, what about fly casting? Do you fly cast exclusively, or do you...
No, not at all. As a matter of fact, I don't fly cast near as much in Florida as I do spinning. I still believe that spinning is the easiest and most productive way to fish, probably the best all-around way to fish. However, I really get my greatest enjoyment when the conditions are right and where I can use a fly rod, because pretty cast with a fly rod and working water with a fly rod to me is just just something special as far as fishing is concerned.
Listen, what about bait casting? Is bait casting coming back or not?
Well, I would think that bait casting would come back a little bit. The reels are great. They run smoothly. The lines, even monofilament, our monofilament line can be cast very well with bait casting equipment. You have absolutely no chance of fraying. You don't have any twisting of the line. It gives a guy a little bit of satisfaction to know that he's controlling that line all the way. It is just simply slipping off the reel with no chance of a backlash or anything else. He has complete control of that cast all the time. He is feeling it all the way through. And to me, there's a little special satisfaction out of being a good bait caster.
Listen, what's your top-rated fly fish?
Oh, to me, there's no question an Atlantic salmon, as far as I'm concerned. I'd rather fish for Atlantic salmon than any other single fish. I can fish on a beautiful stream. I can make bugs. I call them bugs flies for these fish till the wee hours of the morning. The day isn't long enough when I'm on a salmon stream. Certainly the most enjoyable thing I've ever done in the outdoors, except hunting mallards, which I had a tremendous go, boy. And of course, there's not so many ducks anymore, and as a result, well, I have quit hunting ducks, but that was a super thrill for me. But Atlantic salmon fishing with a fly rod is great. Now, I think that fishing for tarpon is also great, but a little bit different, and not quite as relaxing, not as many moments of anticipation to me. I mean, every cast on an Atlantic salmon stream, you think, there's that 20-pounder or 15-pounder, and to me, it's just great.
What about bone fishing? You do quite a bit of bone fishing.
Well, bone fishing, I used to do an awful lot of bone fishing. I was just a bone fishing nut for quite a while. I got to where the only thing I'd have to say about a bonefish is that every fight is just the same. They pick up the bait and away they go, and pretty much the same, but you're absolutely awed by the power that a bonefish has. The run that he makes against a pretty darn good drag, what he can do on that initial run, I don't think there's a fish like him. Of course, when they're tailing, and when you're fishing with them with flies, where your cast has to be reasonably delicate, where it has to be reasonably long, and the technique of making that fish come and take that fly, and then after you retrieve maybe 15 or 20 feet, and you have that loose line around, when he hits that thing and he starts off, nothing slows him down, and you really have to have control of what you're doing, or you're going to have a hard time.
Can they strip 100 yards of fly line in one run?
Oh, they can strip. I always say this, that an 8-pound bonefish, unless he's sick fish, he'll run 100 to 125 yards of line every time he gets on there.
Listen, Ted, what do you do your Atlantic salmon fishing?
Oh, I fish up in the Miramichi and New Brunswick.
What is the difference? You know, in the Miramichi, there's a lot of Central New England sportsmen that are in our listening audience that go up there and they fish for black salmon. What is a...
Well, black salmon spring fishing, and I've never done it, and I know it's a lot of fun. It must be a lot of fun, especially for people that have been in all winter and haven't had a chance to get out in the outdoors, and here's this spring fishing is great, I guess. They're fish that have been up in the river all winter, and they're spent, and they're not as strong a fish. The longer the later you catch them in the spring, the stronger they are because they're feeding on the way down. But that's a lot of fun. I've just never had a chance to do it.
Listen, Ted, before you leave, why don't you tell us one funny fishing experience? I'm sure you've had many. There must be
Well,
one.
probably, a funny thing, when you stand to answer this question, I said, well, I don't know anything funny, but I'll tell you what happened to me. I went up and I fished for brook trout one time up in a little lake called Fish Lake, and there was a nice little stream running out of this lake, and we were fishing it, and we did catch some brookies, and finally we got into a real good bend in this little river, and the guide said that we got a little bitty squirrel tail, and the flies I had were all really too big, and I didn't have a squirrel tail, but I put on the smallest fly I had, was a little hair fly, a feathered fly, and I threw this bug out in this current, and bang, I got a strike. And it was a landlocked salmon, and he was about a 3.5 pound landlocked salmon, and he made this few jumps and worked around the pool, and we finally got him in the net, and in the corner of his mouth was a little gray squirrel tail. And I said, Jimmy Kristen, look at this. Well, he said, that's the one we lost the other day on a little gray squirrel tail, so I got that same fish out of that pool.
Ted, that's tremendous. Ted, I want to thank you for stopping by to say hello. You're not only a great sportsman, but a real fine gentleman.
Oh, thank
you. If you get a chance to again, do that.